My name is Cheryl Scott, and I have the privilege to welcome you to a pretty unique event. In the context of our times, we would love to welcome Ronnie Codrington-Cazeau to our school in a very raucous, pure UPrep kind of ceremony where we'd all be in person, we would all be giving toasts, we would all be happy to be part of this amazing community. Unfortunately, we don't live in that kind of time right now, and yet it's so important to do what we are going to do tonight, which is to welcome, to say, gosh, we're glad you're here, and to give Ronnie a chance to address us about her hopes and aspirations for us as a community. I'd like to welcome faculty, staff, parents, students, guests to this quite wonderful event. And even though we're over Zoom, please understand this is a heartfelt welcome to you, Ronnie, and to all that you do for our school and for our community. It seems like 1,000 years ago, but it was just July of this year that Ronnie assumed the new head of school role. And since that time, she has met every single staff member, reached out to every single faculty member, board members, many members of the community. And she, in her warmth and her vision and her sense of what can be, has given us the energy and the enthusiasm to be our best for the students at UPrep. It has been an honor for me to serve with her, and I'm just excited for what the future may hold. The second part of tonight, by the way, is about that future, which is a town hall. And you will have an opportunity, I think you already have, to send in some questions. And Ronnie and Susie Wu, the head of middle school, and Joel Sohn, the head of our upper school, will have a chance to dialogue with you about some of those key questions. So without further ado, let me introduce my dear friend, colleague, Tori Reagan. Tori was one of the co-chairs of our search committee, has been the chair of our transition committee, and can give you a sense of the process and the future as it unfolds. So Tori, take it away.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. As Cheryl mentioned, I'm Tori Reagan, and I am a parent of 3 kids at UPrep. I have a current junior, Carly, and then 2 in college. This is my 7th year on the Board of Trustees, and I'm currently the vice chair of the board. And I had the opportunity over the last couple of years to co-chair both the head of school search and transition committees along with Laura D'Amato. Give a quick shout out to Laura. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so much for your partnership. And I'd love to take a moment to thank the members of both of those other committees, as well as give you a little bit more information about that. Our search committee encompassed several members of our community: Kelly Harrington, who's the director of college counseling and student services; Meg Shortell, who was a former math teacher at UPrep, as well as Board of Trustees members Charisse Cowan-Petrie, Cheryl Scott, Tim Ritchie, and Kobe Yamada. And during that search and interview process, we learned many amazing things about Ronnie, but a couple that stand out were, as a prior history teacher herself, as a former administrator, and as the former head of Evergreen School, she had very close and intentional relationships with faculty and staff, which just really stood out to us as a search committee. She also demonstrated a real commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and has a national profile in education. These, along with many other attributes, led the search committee to unanimously vote that Ronnie would be the next best head of UPrep. We also had a transition committee that began meeting last spring, and on that committee was Lila Lohr, our former interim head, Ronnie, Cheryl Scott, Laura D'Amato, as well as several members of Ronnie's admin team: Chevette McGee, Susan Landsberg, Catherine Blundell, and Mary Beth Lambert. Wanted to thank them all. Our job was to sort of help Ronnie as she began to identify her goals for UPrep in this coming school year, as well as look for ways to help meaningfully connect her with the UPrep community in this very unusual time of COVID. So now I would love to officially thank and welcome Ronnie. It's been such a pleasure to get to know her over this past year and through the search process. And we are really excited to welcome you as the next head of UPrep. And I want to hand it over now to 12th graders 12th grader Rohan and 7th grader Alexa, who are going to read some poems that were selected by Ronnie.
The brick walls are there for a reason. The brick walls are not there to keep us out. The brick walls are there to give us a chance to show how badly we want something. Because the brick walls are there to stop the people who don't want it badly enough. They're there to stop the other people. The last lecture, Randy Posh. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. Ecclesiastes 3:1-8.
You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Try to be a rainbow in someone else's cloud. Do not complain. Make every effort to change the things you do not like. If you cannot make a change, change the way you have been thinking. You might find a new solution. Maya Angelou. And now, I'm very pleased to welcome one of UPrep's founders and former head of school, Roger Bass.
It's my pleasure to be with you this evening. As Alexa said, I'm one of the founders of the school, and I served as head of University Prep from 1977 to 2002. So I was head for 25 years. After retiring from the school, I became a consultant with a group out of New York City. And I worked with independent schools throughout the nation and a few independent schools internationally. As a consultant, I was hired by Evergreen School to serve as an executive coach and mentor to their then fairly new head, Ronnie Codrington-Cazeau. We had a wonderful time together, and we came very close during the year that we worked together. Since then, I have watched her career skyrocket, taking many of the positions that I held when I was the head of University Prep. She became active in the Northwest Association of Independent Schools and also served as its president. She's been serving on the board of the National Association of Independent Schools. And we also served together as members of the Country Day School Headmasters Association. I think often of what a strange time it must be to begin heading a new school in the middle of a pandemic, when much of the work needs to be done virtually. But then I remember the school is in really great shape. The remodeling looks fabulous. The faculty is skilled. The leadership team is positioned to lead the school through a period where diverse voices are very important and enrollment is strong. I wish Ronnie as much joy leading university prep as I had during my time as head of school. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Ronnie Codrington-Cazeau.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all. I am delighted to be speaking with you from Founders Hall. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. Maya Angelou is one of my favorite poets and authors because she gets me and she sees right into my soul. I begin with her quote because that is one of the best descriptions of my personal mission in life. I come from a family of dreamers, thinkers, innovators, and doers. I am Black, a West Indian, a mother, a daughter, a wife, and a sister. I am driven to succeed and eager to mentor others in their journeys to leadership. I am just paying it forward since there are many who have mentored me, especially Ravita Bowers and Roger Bass. I am third-generation college educated and a firm believer that with a great education, we can achieve anything in life. I have learned from the lessons of my parents and grandparents before me, and I am handing on all that I have learned to my two children, Aiden, 18, and Kaylee, 16. They are my proudest accomplishments, and I would not be standing here today without the love and support of my husband, Patrick, and my children. For that, I thank them. In 1980, my mother arrived at Logan International Airport with 3 children in tow. We were moving from Barbados to Boston after a short stop in Canada. Our life was very different from the life we had left behind. There were new customs and traditions to learn. Halloween is still the hardest one for me. Dressing up in costumes and running from house to house, begging for candy, still seems like an odd custom to me. Growing up, I was determined never to become a teacher. After all, both of my parents had been teachers at some points in their lives. My father, a math teacher turned businessman, and my mother, a music teacher. I wanted to be different. I just didn't know what I wanted to be. I was a little jealous of my sister, who knew right away that she wanted to be a lawyer. We are 16 months apart, and it always scared me a little that she knew early on and I had no idea. I thought about entering the medical profession, but realized that I would not make a good doctor as I was scared by the sight of blood. I was not very artistic, so that limited me in some careers. But as a youngster, the one thing I enjoyed was lining up my dolls and teaching them in my make-believe school. But no, I was never going to become a teacher until great teachers began to influence me. The first was my 6th grade teacher. It was a small school, and there were only 12 of us in 6th grade. Having just arrived from Barbados with a strange accent and quiet demeanor, I shied away from mingling with the other 11 students. Every day, my teacher would go out of his way to motivate me, encourage me to participate in recess games or to interact more in the classroom. One day, he sat down next to me and told me that introspection was good as long as I was thinking of ways in which to change the world. I have been thinking of ways to change the world ever since. I have no idea where this teacher is now, but every time I enter a classroom, I think of him. The second teacher to have a lasting impact on me was the head of the English department at my high school, Boston Latin School. This teacher allowed me to spend hours in her office after school reading. I devoured any book I could get my hands on. And in those first few years of high school, my world expanded and doors were opened to new possibilities. Theodore Dreiser in his novel Sister Carrie, and Thomas Hardy in his novel Tess of the D'Urbervilles taught me the power of a strong woman. And Richard Wright in his novel Native Son, and Maya Angelou in her novel I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, taught me the power of inner strength. I owe this high school English teacher my love of reading and the inspiration each book, fiction or nonfiction, gives me. My years at Wellesley College grew me from a child into an adult. I felt empowered on that campus full of strong, motivated women and learned how to challenge myself and others to lead. Those 4 undergraduate years quickly came and went, and the cocoon of safety I had built in that protected environment quickly came and went as well. Suddenly, it was the middle of my senior year, and I had no idea what I wanted to pursue. I remember walking somberly to my dean's office to seek her advice about what came next. She asked me to recollect my favorite classes, professors, and moments at Wellesley. As I talked about the time I'd spent tutoring students at the local high school, my body language changed, and I became energetic and animated. This is how one meeting changed the trajectory of my life. I have been a teacher, administrator, and school leader for 29 years. Yes, I started at age 12, for those of you quickly calculating my age. I love working with young people and watching them learn how they can change the world, but I also like thinking of how education will change and grow in our future, how the ways in which we educate our children must change and grow to meet the adapting needs of young people today. When I was a teenager, there were no cell phones, only pay phones on street corners and landlines with phone numbers we all shared. I remember my friends calling me on the house line and then dragging the phone into the closet of my bedroom for privacy. There were no navigation systems in cars and no automatic car locks. I was proud of my Walkman. There are probably some of you who do not know what that is or what a cassette tape is. But I was even prouder when I could afford my first portable CD player. I left for college with my typewriter and a small television that you had to get up and turn the knob on if you wanted to change the channel. Just as technology has changed, so must education. A good school leader must be visionary and be able to share that vision with every constituent in their school. As Bert Nanos writes in his book, Visionary Leadership, there is no more powerful engine driving an organization toward excellence and long-range success than an attractive, worthwhile, and achievable vision of the future widely shared. My graduate work at Pepperdine University taught me about the importance of being a visionary. Just as I sat with my dolls in my youth, teaching them how to read, and as I reimagined my career path as a senior in college, so must I imagine a future for UPrep. A vision which must be shared and owned by every stakeholder in this school community. That vision can only be achieved if there is trust in the community and if the vision is in line with the mission of the school. I feel so lucky that my journey in education through 4 schools has finally brought me to UPrep, a school of infinite potential, a school poised to increase its mark on the Seattle landscape. That young girl with her dolls, wondering what she would become when she grew up, now stands before you, wondering what UPrep will become as it grows up and how I will help it get there. We are at an interesting intersection in the world today. We desperately need leaders who will listen and lead with compassion and understanding. The students that we have in our classrooms today will be the future world leaders of tomorrow. How will I help this school create strong global citizens? How will my vision for what UPrep can become be realized? I came to UPrep because it is a school ready to launch idealistic change makers onto an unsuspecting world. This is a school which asks students to look outside their 4 classroom walls and use the world and the city as real-world classrooms. This is a school which teaches young people how to take risks while accepting the consequences, how to question authority with courage and compassion, and how to lead with strength and motivation. Whether virtual or in person, UPrep is a community where I see myself growing, leading, and making an impact. I believe students today must learn by doing and experiencing. I believe they will need to learn the skills for jobs that have not yet been created. I believe our students will need to be personable, be able to dive into difficult conversations, be able to interact with people who look very different than they do and who live far away from them. I believe our students will create prototypes which may fail at first, and they may have to try over and over again to reach desired successes. I believe our students will need to be resilient, confident, and divergent thinkers. I believe they will need to find creative solutions to real-world problems, and they will see the world changing rapidly before their eyes. Are we ready to become the UPrep that is strong now, but will be even stronger in the future? Are we ready to create the leaders who will change the world? In its own words, crafted by the community and affirmed in everything that the school does and stands for, University Prep is committed to developing each student's potential to become an intellectually courageous, socially responsible citizen of the world. Please join me in helping to make this school's mission a reality. Thank you. I want to thank all of our invited guests. We are about to move into the town hall portion of the evening, and if you are not a UPrep parent or guardian, you may leave at this time. Many of my closest friends, relatives, and mentors were on screen today to watch this, and I thank you as always for your support and say good night to you all. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to the town hall portion of the event of the evening. And thank you to everyone who submitted the great questions for the town hall. In reviewing them, we realized there were so many that it's unlikely that we can get to them all. A few related to the trial return to campus. So Ronnie decided that those questions can be answered by referring to the safety plan and the family handbook that's in the addendum to the family handbook that was sent out in yesterday's e-newsletter. Tonight's focus will be on community building and vision for the future. And with that, I'll go to my first question, which goes to Ronnie, and it's, what are some of the most immediate or urgent goals, dreams, challenges you all face as a team that is newly brought together? And how, as parents and community members, can we help and assist? Also, how do you envision our role as your partners in bringing those dreams and goals to fruition and problem solving?
Thank you, Lisa. I was excited to come to UPrep to work with this leadership team. They are an amazing group of individuals who do their jobs extremely well. Many of them are leaders in the NWAIS and NAIS communities, and all of them are committed to the school. However, we are a group of individuals and have not yet become a team. We began that work today of becoming a team in our admin retreat. Our diversity and organizational consultant took us through a series of exercises where we looked at the process of forming, norming, and storming as a team. This work will be hard, engaging, and part of a process, but it will help us work together to grow and set goals for UPrep. Our parents and community members can help by supporting the leadership team members they work with the most. So our most immediate goal is really the obvious one, and that is to open school and bring our students back to campus. We also want to make sure that all of our students are physically and mentally healthy while they are at home learning online. And to that end, our division heads and counselors and SEL coordinator are checking in with students, teachers, and families regularly. We have designed advisory meetings for students that focus on their social and mental well-being. And we had amazing grade level retreats in the fall. We know our students need to come back, and we are working hard to get them here. We'll also be working with our teachers and department heads to create a curriculum scope and sequence for the school and work on our next strategic plan with the board. As community members, we will want to hear your feedback on your thoughts about some of the priorities for our next strategic plan. There will be surveys and listening sessions, and I hope you will all participate. Parents are our partners in supporting teachers, in asking thoughtful questions about our curriculum and school culture, in volunteering for committees, sending positive emails or emails with questions about your students' progress to staff members and faculty, and supporting us as we try to get your children back to school. But most of all, we need your patience. We need you to be patient with us as we try to make this work. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Okay, next question for you, Susie. How can parents best support the school?
Ronnie actually answered some of those questions, and it was really good to hear Ronnie's responses to it, because I think that that really sets the tone for how we as a community, a school community, are going to get through this year. For those of you who have been with us at University Prep during the spring, you all know and experienced how we came through together as a community stronger at the end of the school year than we did when we had to quickly pivot into online schools. And now we have Joel and Ronnie with us, who are wonderful additions to our community. And not only are they learning our community very quickly, but having to get to know us under these unusual circumstances that are, going to be our new norm in many ways. So one of the things I wanted to share with you as a division director is that being in a fully online class has made us have to continue to define, maybe clarify more or distill more, a partnership between school, between our teachers and administrators, and what's going on at home. I'm finding myself actually talking with individual parents about things like discipline, things like accountability, things that happen on a day-to-day basis that we usually do to support our students when they are here in person. And now, because they are at home, I am talking to them like they are my coworkers and my colleagues. And I think that Joel's probably doing the same thing. And this, I think, is actually one of the silver linings of the pandemic in a weird way, is that we've had to increase our communication, and we've had to increase our collaboration and work together in support of our students. It's something that I actually think has always been very, very important in working together as a community to serve our students, because that's what we have in common: your children, our students, and the journey that we're taking together. So I think that the best ways that you can support are exactly what Ronnie has said. We need your communication. We need to share ideas. We need to partner together, and we need to be patient with each other as we get to understand each other's values and how we work together and align together to support your child's growth during this time. The other way to support our school is also by your contribution to the Puma Fund. And I know that that seems like a random ask, you know, and maybe a difficult ask during this time. But I do want you to know that one of the best things about your contribution to the Puma Fund is that it directly benefits your children, and it directly benefits the community here. This is what allows us so much to, you know, act on some of our great new ideas, create innovation, and support our faculty and students. So many, many different ways. Keep communicating and talking with us, you know, help us when we're in whatever ways you can, and send a nice word to Ronnie and Joel, being our new community members. I think that it's so important for them to hear from you about what all the wonderful things that are happening at home.
That's great. Thank you, Susie. Okay, switching gears a little bit, still staying with community building, to Joel. How do you intend to lead UPrep in its commitment to diversity, and will that include educating parents and students on what it means to be an anti-racist community?
Thanks, Lisa. That's a huge question, and I think actually kind of like what Susie said is that I do think Ronnie actually started to address some of that. You know, Ronnie and I, and you know, being new, we both come with a background in DEI work, and it was great to work with the team today, our administration team, to really start to form our relationships together. Because one of the things that I believe is necessary for people to understand about DEI work is that we often point to one person that's been appointed that, right? And so University Prep is incredibly fortunate to have Iche Lin, our Director of Community Diversity, be that point person. But the reality is that it takes every individual in the school community to really understand their contribution towards creating an anti-racist system in the school. And we have to really think about ourselves and our individual impacts. And so I often think about it as layers of concentric circles, and how we as individuals have to work on ourselves, and then have to work with others, and then have to work with the entire community. And so our work today was really in leading ourselves through a journey in kind of what we call a mutual accountability, right? We talked about jazz, and how jazz artists have the ability to innovate and creatively express themselves in such a way that allows the material that they're working with to transform. And we're just fortunate that the material we're working with are people and relationships. And so I think that's going to transform our community. And I think that's what we're going to work on first. And then we are definitely going to work on socializing this with the entire school, both the students and the families that come with those students. We want everyone involved in these conversations. I'm really proud of UPrep in this. I think they are taking the right steps in the right direction. And I can't wait to see what happens.
Sounds great. Thank you. It's nice to have your experience. Okay, back to Ronnie. What are your thoughts on the alumni population and getting them engaged with the school?
Thank you. Many of our alumni care deeply about their UPrep experiences, and many of them stay involved with the school. In fact, when it was announced that I was going to become head of UPrep, there were alums that sprang up out of the woodwork that I didn't even know were alums. I have neighbors that came and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, I'm a UPrep alum, congratulations." I have parents at the elementary school where I was before who popped out at carpool to say, "I went to UPrep." And everyone is so excited when they say those words, "I went to UPrep." So we have alum parents who are now sending their children back to the school. We have alum teachers and staff at the school. We also have an alumni board, which engages in conversations about how to grow UPrep and create a strong community for past and present students. And recently, in response to some of the concerns around the country and in Seattle about the feelings of graduates of color from independent schools, we created an alumni DEI committee. We are listening to our alums. We want to hear what their experiences were when they went through the school. So again, thanks to Iche Lin and Toby Catolico from Advancement, who's also an alum, this committee had its first meeting last month. There were alumni there from as early as 1982 and as late as 2018. And everyone talked about their experience as a student at UPrep, but especially about their experiences feeling different at UPrep. Whether it was a racial or a socioeconomic or an ethnic difference, they felt different. And they were able to share powerfully about this experience. The conversation was engaging. It was interesting to see how different generations saw things through different lenses. And so alums can only help us better tell the story of UPrep, and I hope to learn from and reach out to more of them. As soon as some of the COVID restrictions are lifted, I hope to travel around and see alums in their cities and towns and really get to know them and get to know what they are doing with their lives. Taking the reins of a school right at an intense period of a pandemic, a global pandemic, it's a little bit different. So it may take me a little longer to get out there and to meet our community, but I will do it. And I hope that alums continue to reach out to me as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, this one is for both Susie and Joel, if you could both take a turn. Given the uncertainty of COVID and the resurgence, what innovative ideas for community building in person can the school promote?
All right, I think I'm taking first stab at this. Is that right, Joel? Yes. So one of the things that I wanted to start with is to explain to our audience, our parent audience particularly, that in these times we have to be very creative and opportunistic about how we bring community together. We're operating under a very unusual set of restrictions, COVID restrictions for health. So bringing together large groups of people in the ways that we're used to doing is not possible these days, and to be safe. And so what we've had to do is kind of think about all the different things that we used to do to bring community together, and then we have to rethink them or reframe them. So for example, our 6th grade science class run by Mr. Strauss and Ms. Reyes usually culminate their rocket unit, which is what they're studying, rocket science unit, with a rocket launch outside. So earlier, about a month ago, Tom Strauss and Elisa Reyes both approached me to say, we'd really not like to lose this opportunity for the rocket launch. And so they were brainstorming ideas like neighborhood, meeting students in different pods in the neighborhood parks, and trying to get together small groups to recapture to do the rocket launch in various neighborhoods, but realized that with time that wasn't going to be able to happen, as well as transportation. So instead, what they reimagined with the help of our transportation coordinator, Andy Richardson, they are going to actually try to arrange a Saturday rocket launch on October 17th in shifts, and have small groups of students come in, do the rocket launch together, and as a reminder, in middle school, 6th graders have not had a chance very often to meet each other in person yet. So this is going to be super important to them. Another one that I want to mention is that talking to Ms. Wyatt, Melissa Wyatt, and Bretta Balu Ringo, who are both the stagecraft and the play production teachers, they're looking at a very innovative way to live stream a play production that is socially distanced and that goes through all the COVID restrictions. So they've submitted a proposal for how to do that in a way, including imagining a few students on the Founders Hall stage, socially distanced in hula hoops, so not being able to move, but being able to recite their lines while we have cameras, operating them. It's not finalized yet. We still have to take it through our COVID task force. But this is the kind of what I would say the contortion that all of our teachers are rethinking their curriculum and trying very, very hard, not just to pass along content, but to recreate ways for our students to connect together so that they're learning together, they're playing together, they're interacting with each other. And that's what's the richness, that is the richness of the UPrep education. So those are just two examples, but teachers are just thinking of all sorts of different things. Joel, I don't know if you want to add to that in terms of upper school.
Sure. I think, I'll just speak very quickly about, we're trying everything, as Susie said, to be as responsive, right, to the needs that we see and that we can identify. And I think I am incredibly fortunate to have really creative individuals on the team here, and that someone like Rebecca Moe is doing everything in her power to test out what is possible, getting kids together, under the right restrictions that we have. We're doing things in a safe way and to experiment, and that's what we want to continually do, is to experiment. The one thing I will say about community building during a time of COVID is something I talk about oftentimes, which is proximal relationships. I think when we're in person, we often take the easy route of building relationships by people who are just near us, who happen to be in a class, who happen to be walking in the hall next to us, who happen to share space at a lunch table near us. And that what I found that during this time is that kids are being so much more intentional about reaching out to each other. And that, to me, speaks largely about the strength of community, and that despite our inability to get together in large groups, our kids are aware and doing everything in their power to reach out and make connections more thoughtfully and engage with others in a real meaningful way. And I think that is what I'm really seeing as a positive aspect, right, of the Zoom culture right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the vision topic. And so a lot of these are for Ronnie. Ronnie, we are so fortunate to have you at the helm. You've just joined UPrep. However, let's pretend that you are looking back at your tenure instead. What do you hope to be remembered for? Another way of saying this, what is your biggest dream for UPrep?
Thanks, Lisa. So I first have to say that when I hear what do you hope to be remembered for, and you're on the other side of 50, that's a little bit more of a scary question. So I'm going to stick to the end of it and say, what's my biggest dream for UPrep? My dreams for UPrep would be that this is the school to go to in the Seattle market. This school already has strong and challenging academics and athletics and performing arts, and it's known for engaging the whole child and graduating ethical citizens. But let's shout that from the rooftops. Let's tell everybody what already exists in this school, and then let's make those programs even better. I'd like the new building to be a space that can be easily reconfigured to meet the needs of future generations and to house courses that haven't even been thought of yet. I'd like students who graduate from UPrep to have a global perspective and be ethical decision makers. And I want UPrep to be the school that has the curriculum that teaches students how to enter into a world of careers that we don't even know the name of yet. I want them to know how to fail gracefully, rise thoughtfully, and challenge themselves to think bigger and broader. That's what I want to leave at UPrep, a UPrep graduate who can be all of those things.
Fantastic. And then a follow-on, what will be your top 2 priorities post-pandemic?
Thank you for saying post-pandemic, because the school will move forward. So first of all, strategic planning. We have to have a new strategic plan, and I love engaging in the work that makes me think about where UPrep will be years from now. I like engaging in strategic planning work also because it's inclusive and it includes the entire community, and it's a great way to get to know the community. Secondly, Richard Casasillas has already started working with the department chairs on a curriculum scope and sequence, and making sure that we have a codified curriculum scope and sequence that tells you how each subject moves through the grade levels, that talks about why we teach the subjects that we choose to teach, and that talks about what the outcomes will be for our students. And thirdly, I know Joel answered the DEI question, but I want to make sure that this is a community where all feel welcome. You know, it's okay to say we want to be a diverse community, but the word diversity just means differences. Once we open the door to all of those differences, will we be an inclusive community? And so those are my top, actually, 3 priorities post-pandemic.
Great. And then for Ronnie also, what have you observed as potential areas of improvement or growth?
So this is always a tricky question, because the areas that I'm identifying are not areas that are failing or that have anything wrong with them, but they're areas where things are changing rapidly in our world, and so we could look at growing in these areas as a school. So the focus on writing skills has changed in recent years, with more and more colleges seeing standardized tests as only part of a student's overall profile. Being able to write a strong college essay is becoming more and more important. So this is an area of growth for all high schools, including UPrep. The size of the school as students move into high school. Growing the high school so that students have a broader range of other students to get to know and to learn from. This growth will happen when we finish the new building, and I think it will give our high school students something to look forward to, as the new spaces will primarily be for our 9th through 12th graders. Thirdly, the visibility of the arts. UPrep has a wonderful arts program, and you know that if you are a student here, a parent here, or a teacher here. We need to talk about what we do. We need to showcase what we do, because it's amazing. And once you're inside the school, you see the depth and the breadth of all that we have to offer in our fine arts program. Thirdly, what does it mean to be a social justice school? Do we all have the same definition of social justice? We use the words a lot, but do we know what it means when I say it, when Susie says it, when Joel says it? Are we all using the same definition? So agreeing on a shared definition of those words will only help to move our school forward. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, okay. And then this is for you, Ronnie. What are your thoughts on how to make UPrep even more competitive among the private schools in the Seattle area?
So one of the things you should know about me is that I'm very competitive. No, I wasn't a great athlete. I was one of those kids who put the jersey on and I was just proud to wear the jersey. I ran track and field, and my goal was not to be last. Okay, just so that's my athletic prowess. But with that said, I think UPrep is already very competitive. That's why I'm here. Because this is a competitive school in the Seattle landscape. We just need to shout it from the rooftops. We need to let the Seattle, and actually the greater Seattle community, know who we are and what we do. I wonder if all of you know that even in a pandemic, we are fully enrolled. We had a wait list all the way through the end of the summer. People really want to come here. We have excellent teachers. I think watching them pivot to an online platform last spring and watching them continue to deliver great lessons to our students, it is teaching excellence at work. We have a leading edge curriculum. Yes, there are some refinements that we could do, but it is a curriculum that really challenges our students to think divergently. We have great fine arts, strong athletics, kind students, an ethical and diverse student body. We are already competitive. We just need to find the right words to share about who we are and what we do.
Great. Okay, I think we have time for one last question, and it's about online learning. How flexible, for Ronnie, how flexible or willing is the school to modify the current schedule given the unusual distance learning our children are having to experience this year? As a parent, I find our teenagers need more than academics to foster positive mental development and drive them through or to find purpose and meaning.
So I also parent 2 teenagers, and I understand. I completely understand. And our school has created a schedule that ensures students are having their academic needs met with enough time for advisory and community time. So with that said, it's not perfect. We know it's not perfect. And I encourage you to keep sending us feedback. We do listen. Even if there's no immediate change, we are listening, we are hearing, and if there's a time in which we can make that change, we will do it. Please also let us know if your student is struggling at home emotionally or academically. We can help to point them in the right direction. So I'm a 9th grade advisor. I think all the students in my advisory are wondering how they ended up with the head of school and as an advisor, but that's okay, I love it. And I've seen firsthand how advisors, grade level deans, division heads, counselors, our SEL coordinator, and our integrated learning department work together to support students. During our 2-week student on campus trial, which begins on October 26th, the schedule will look very different, and we'll get that out to you as soon as we can. This is a chance for us to try something new with our students and get some feedback. As with everything we do, we will fully assess the schedule at the end of the semester with feedbacks from parents, students, and teachers. Thank you. So I really wanted to, I'm gonna end tonight, and I'm gonna end tonight by just saying once again, thank you. This is a wonderful school community. We are all going through a tough time. I know that there are many of you who really want your children back in school, and I know that there are many of you who are anxious about bringing your children back to school. What I want you to know tonight is that we are doing everything that we can to open schools safely. We are communicating with other Seattle area schools. We are communicating with the Washington Department of Public Health. We have our COVID-19 task force is researching everything they can find out about how to make a safe re-entry back into school for our students. Work with us, be patient with us, and as those of you who've already sent me feedback know, I respond to all feedback. I respond to the thank yous, and I also respond to the concerned questions. Keep sending me your feedback. I will answer every single email because I care about getting our students back here. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I am so excited to be here. Good night.